got something I want to ask you about during the show. I'm hoping you know, but I'm not going to ask you until the show.
All right.
I got to save this one for the show.
Okay. Well, I'm prepared now for the unpreparable. Let's see. Unpreparable. That's right. Okay. Record time. Here it goes. It starts in. Oh, you know what? That'd be fun to play. Hold on. We're going to play a little clip that I got from the episode. Hold on 1 second here. Let's do. Okay, yeah. I like that. All right, here we go. It starts in 3, 2, 1.
We'll figure it out now, Butterfingers.
I have
CurrentGeek!
Aha.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Current Geek Autopilot Edition. Chance for us to talk about the pilot episode of a TV show and geek out about it. I'm Scott Johnson. He's Tom Merritt, and this week we're talking about The Greatest American Hero.
Believe it or not.
Whoa.
That's what we're talking about.
See, a lot of people heard that and knew exactly what you were doing, and the song popped into their head because they all know, even if they didn't exactly grow up with the show, they all know what we're talking about, right?
The Greatest American Hero was a top 10 hit.
It was a big deal.
The song is still considered by some to be better than the show. I don't necessarily fall into that category, but I love the song. The song was great. I mean, there's like The Love Boat is a classic song. The Rockford Files is a classic song, but The Greatest American Hero, I feel like, is one of those Mike Post songs that rises even above what Mike Post does. And stands alone as just a catchy pop tune.
I agree. Lyrics and music by him, and then, or somebody else did lyrics, but the song sung by Joe Scarberry. It sounds a bit like this. See if anyone recognize. Here you go. See this? Immediately, all your memory juices should come.
It's so Mike Post, yeah.
Oh, yeah, this is so Mike Post. This could be the beginning of almost any show he ever themed before. But then it goes like this.
Look at what's happened to me.
It goes like full Star Trek Enterprise, kind of, you know?
Except good.
Except good, yes. I think it holds up. I think it's a fun song.
The Enterprise song doesn't bother me as much as it bothers some people, but I love the Greatest American Hero theme song.
Yeah.
It has been parodied many a time. This is one thing I wanted to ask you about, Scott. Do you recall, I think it was Seinfeld, the answering machine Greatest American Hero parody?
Yes.
It was George, right?
It was George. He goes,
believe it or not, George
is and he's something, leave him a thing on the machine. And then at the end he says, something, wing and a prayer. And he goes, so something. Then he goes, it's just George, or I'm not home, or something like that.
George's not home.
Yeah, it's great.
Believe it or not, I'm not home.
Oh, man. I have fond feelings for that as well. So a whole, one of the greatest sitcoms ever making reference to the song. So I feel like I'm making all kinds of excuses for why everybody should know what this show is, but there's a few out there who probably have no idea what the Greatest American Hero is. And so our job is to talk
sat down to record an episode of a different podcast I do about science fiction and fantasy books and found that my co-host had no idea what show I was talking about. I mean, maybe that happened.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't feel too bad about it. I think she would, I've given it away who it is probably, but she should sit down. She should watch an episode. Maybe not the pilot.
She or they.
Yeah, I'll just say off the top here, I think the pilot is not the best indicator of what the show would become. I think they started a little rough, in my opinion. That thing's 90 minutes long, for one thing. And it also, doesn't really get into the suit or its powers until way late into the pilot, which kind of bummed me out.
All of that is true. And definitely in syndication, it's often broken into a two-parter.
Yeah.
And I feel like, that the first half of that part two must not work well alone, because it really, I felt like it does all right in the first 45 minutes, and then it just starts to drag until he finally starts using the suit. Like you say, it's like there's all the buildup. He gets the suit. He has troubles with the suit. Fine. And then we're driving around in a car in LA traffic.
Yeah. For a long time. There's a long time.
Too real of a depiction of what it's like to drive around.
Right. It really struck Tom where he lives. it turns out.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny. At one point, I'm like, oh, they shot that out by Dockweiler. I know where those smokestacks are.
Sure.
But yeah, they're never in the city of Los Angeles. Thing. They're always out and about in the edges and the corners.
They're also really bad at depicting what it means to be a high school teacher in that era. Like, these kids are not high school kids. These are people in their late 20s, maybe. And
you think?
Yeah.
I don't know. I found them credible 81 high schoolers.
Oh, I don't know, man. And the idea that they were the biggest troublemakers possible just never seemed right to me.
They were very 1981 troublemakers, not 2019 troublemakers. For sure.
Maybe that's it.
I think there was one girl who got like one line where she said it in a way I'm like, oh, that girl has had trouble. That girl has had attitude. Like in the very beginning, when he's going in the room for the first time, she's like, a field trip. I'm like, all right, everybody else is a little bit of a caricature.
Sure. And then my memory is, and I could be wrong because I haven't gone on to watch additional episodes after this, but I don't think a lot of that part of the theme hung around. I think the teacher part, he's still a teacher in his day job, but I don't think it plays as big a role. It's not like he's got this little group of teenagers that help him get stuff done.
He's not fighting crime with the teenagers, but I know there were a couple of those kids, and not the one he fights, but one of it's not the one he leaves in charge either.
Yeah.
There's a couple of those kids that I'm like, okay, I remember them being in other episodes. Rhonda, for one, is in 28 episodes.
Oh, geez. All right. Well, she
love me, Rhonda. She comes back. I'm trying to think. Like, I'm looking at the episode count on IMDb, and actually, Tony Villicana, he's the guy he fights with.
Yeah.
He's in 30 episodes, so he does stick around. I thought there was another kid. Maybe it's Paco.
It's a Jesse.
Yeah, I think it's Paco that I recognize. I'm like, oh, he plays a bigger part in future episodes. He barely does anything in this one.
Yeah, my memory is that it was mostly Robert Culp and William Catt. William Catt, who plays your main character, Ralph Hinckley, who gets this suit. Now, here's what I don't remember. I remember the show pretty distinctly and the music and all of that, but I don't remember the origin story at all. Aliens giving him a suit, and there was an instruction book that he lost. I don't remember any of that, even though I do remember throughout the series he was always struggling to figure out what new thing it could let him do. So there are multiple episodes in the future of this 3-season run where he's like, I don't know how to make it do the thing supposedly it can kind of do, or it'll do something by accident, and he's trying to recreate it or whatever.
No, so I remember that as the trope of like he had lost the manual.
Yeah.
And so he had to he didn't know how to control the suit, which I feel like was essential to the appeal of this, because even though the network apparently put some pressure on him to make it more kid-friendly in the future, they really just wanted to tell a human drama and say, if a person had the suit, it would cause them as many problems as it solved.
Right.
Well, especially in 1981, it was like, oh man, if I was Superman, I wouldn't have any problems. And this show was like, but maybe you would. What if you were Superman and it didn't solve all your problems, and you just wanted to live your life and marry your lawyer friend, and it got in the way because now you had to fight crime. I totally remember the aliens giving him the suit, though. I'm surprised you didn't remember.
No memory of that. Don't remember the aliens.
I'm pretty sure I was excited to watch this pilot. I remember watching this when it aired. I would have been like 10 years old.
Yeah.
It aired on March 18th, 1981 on ABC.
Oh my gosh, a long time ago. But like the concept is fine, and certainly I think worked in 1980s what we would accept as a television origin story. But in my head, it was all different. What does stick with me, though, is the theme that sticks throughout the show, I think, if I remember right, and that is that he never really quite gets used to it. He's never really 100% comfortable as this hero. He's sort of goofy. You can't never fly normal. Like, flying is always hard. Landings are always bad.
I don't know my comic book history well enough to say this with any confidence, but I'm pretty sure we hadn't had a whole lot of superheroes flawed in this manner.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, he's not evil. He's not flawed by temptation or something like that. He's not Mysterio.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a liar. He's just someone who really doesn't want to be a superhero and can't control his powers.
Yeah.
And that's almost a common trope now, right? The flawed superhero who's dealing with the implications of being it. But I feel like this is one of the earlier representations of that.
Yeah, it's fun. That part doesn't get old. I wish they would have gotten to it quicker, though. Again, this sort of teacher who's having a hard time getting to these kids, and these kids are resisting him, and all of that lead up, I think, was just
really
too
I
much.
dug that. I found this episode refreshingly held up in certain ways.
Right.
I'm totally with you on the pacing. It was dreary in the pacing,
Right.
but I loved the idea that he was trying to help the kids, but it was not paper thin trying to help the kids, right? Like he decides to have a fight with what was his name again? Tony.
Tony.
I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, that's pretty gritty. Like normally, the stereotype would be like, well, Tony, no, the way we use our feelings and our words. And he's like, all right, no, let's get in the ring and punch each other. We'll do it. We're responsibly with the coach there and wearing pads. And Tony's like, no, man, we'll just do it on the street. But I was like, man, this is authentic. This could be just a high school drama if you turned it up a notch and gave it a little more depth. I thought the way he treated his girlfriend / lawyer, the way he treated his child, although they didn't have enough of that in this episode. I think we get a lot more of that in future episodes. All was something that you didn't cringe at and go, oh, that's so 80s. Like, it felt very like you could play these kinds of lines today and they would work just fine. That's not so much true of Bill Maxwell. He is definitely supposed to be not even a creature of the 80s, but a creature of the 50s, right? But that plays because it's intentional. It's like, oh, you're old school, Bill. You just want to, the Cold War isn't even going on anymore, which I'm like, really? In 1981, I remember thinking the Cold War was still on.
Yeah.
But the attitude was like, you're old fashioned. You're thinking in a way that's outmoded, a way that will destroy us all. And it's very Cold War era in that respect, where it's trying to help deal with the problems of humanity without casting blame, right? Bill Maxwell's the guy like, it's the Reds, it's the Ruskies' fault. And Ralph Hinckley is like, no, man, it's deeper than that. We need a better way to solve things. And
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a certain timelessness about it that I didn't expect.
Yeah, or maybe it's just it was a little ahead of its time. It feels like something you could make today if you were smart and knew what you were doing. It could make something fun.
It's been optioned and developed a few times. They've attached directors. It just keeps falling. Lord and Miller were on board at one point within the past couple of years to do that. So yeah.
Well, here's a fun side note, and this is going to sound like a strange thing, but I had some other things going on at the same time as I was watching it. Had some other stats and data up, and I got curious. We just had the end of Game of Thrones. Okay, one of the most watched things in the history of ever. Long series, 2011 till now, and it's over now. And I thought, well, wait, back in the day, we did a lot more episodes per season. What are the chances that some of my favorite faces in Game of Thrones have actually been on screen less episodes of Game of Thrones than these guys were?
Oh, weird.
Of this show, and I was right. For example, you can take a number of these, but Gwendolyn Christie,
Eddard Stark, right?
Yeah, well, like Brienne of Tarth, even Davos Seaworth rather. Freaking the guy that plays Bronn, Theon Greyjoy. All of them were either right at or less total episodes of Game of Thrones than all of the main characters were for Greatest American Hero. So, I guess what I'm saying is, it's part of us all think of, and Game of Thrones obviously quite the production, right? Like, everything's, all this money is spent. It's a huge thing. Everything's a movie almost every episode. But at the end of the day, if you're just counting like hour-long episodes and who was on it, these guys worked less total hours than Robert Culp did for that other thing. So don't ask me why that came up, but it came up, and I made a little cross-reference, a little Venn diagram, and now it's out of my mind. I don't have to think about it anymore. So there's that.
I mean, that's crazy. That is a testament to how things have changed.
Yeah.
These days, like you got on a show and you were on that show, right? And that's what you did until that show was gone.
Right.
Which is why so many actors had out clauses like, well, after 6 seasons, I don't know, I might want to go off and do something else. Whereas these days, on a show, you might not be on every episode, and those shows might only have 12 episodes a season, and they might only have a season every 2 years. And Dan Wally points out, I bet Greatest American Hero had higher ratings than Game of Thrones. just because it was broadcast. I mean, it might not have, because Game of Thrones ratings are very high.
Right.
But back in 1981, you still only had 3 channels.
Yeah. You had 3 networks to
3
choose from.
3 networks anyway.
Yeah, and you were probably watching that on the night it aired, and you were good to go. I do wonder why it ended. And did you know that when it ended in 1983, Vanity Says the Preacher was the final episode? But did you know they came back later in 1986, so 3 years later, with something called The Greatest American Heroine, where the aliens tell Ralph to find a substitute replacement for him when his secret identity is revealed to the world, which I don't know why that was so hard since he doesn't wear a mask or anything. He just runs around with his head in that thing. But anyway, much to Bill's disgust, they select a woman to be his successor, and that's truly where it ended in 86. A lady wears the costume.
It was the pilot of what was going to be a series. They reunited the cast in 1986. They did not broadcast the pilot, so it never made it to NBC air.
Nope.
It was going to be on NBC. It wasn't going to be on ABC.
Right.
But it never made it to air. So they put it out in syndication as the last episode of Greatest American Hero.
Right.
So if you watched back, when they would run Greatest American Hero reruns, you might have seen this in the march of the episodes. It's not included in the streaming versions now. It's separated.
That is correct.
But it was syndicated that way. And they just said Greatest American Hero and then had the INE fade in to the NBC chimes.
Mm-hmm.
Dun, dun, dun. As a way to come on, NBC, you got to pick this up.
Yeah, they never did. Just
Nope,
too bad. But they're all working. That's the fun bit. So I was also doing a little digging around on different actors and stuff. And the actor who played the kid he boxed, let me find his name again, Tony. His name is Michael Pera. That dude has never stopped working, and it's nothing you've heard of. In 2010, he made a movie called Amphibious Creature of the Deep. In 2019, he just finished up something called Emerald Run in 7 days. Made 10 or 12 productions in 2017 and 2018, and has never really stopped working since he got that original job, which is only his second job in acting, was The Greatest American Hero. And then that dude is in everything. So again, nothing you've heard of or care to watch. It's all direct to DVD. It's all funky streaming stuff you can't get anywhere else. But well done, Michael Pera. Well done, everybody really on this cast, except Robert Culp, who passed away. But William Katt, still very busy, is in all sorts of stuff. Most recently in, let's see, something called The Other Side of the Other Side of the Wind. But I remember him as a minister on Supergirl, which just happened. So there's that. So yeah, they may not have gone more than 3 seasons, but these guys live on in our hearts and minds, right?
Yeah, another person we have been remiss in not mentioning is Stephen J. Cannell. He wrote most of the episodes of Greatest American Hero. He was the executive producer. Premiere episode here was directed by Rod Holcomb, but Stephen J. Cannell, if you don't know, responsible for The Commish.
Yeah.
Executive producer on Hawkeye.
Whoa.
The 1995 series. Executive producer on a bunch of other series in the 90s, but you might know Booker, you might know Unsub or Stingray, or maybe a little series called The A-Team, perhaps. He's executive producer on that. But even before Greatest American Hero, Stephen J. Cannell was the executive producer of Riptide.
Oh.
Of Hunter.
I loved Riptide.
Of Hardcastle and McCormick.
Oh, my gosh.
And best of all... Well, hold on. The Rockford Files.
Yeah.
But best of all, 10 Speed and Brown Shoe.
Oh, I was going to say, all roads lead back to 10 Speed and Brown Shoe for Tom.
Executive producer of all 8 episodes.
Yeah.
Well, executive producer of 8 episodes. He was co-exec on 1 episode.
Well, all right. Busy.
Of 10 Speed and Brown Shoe.
Busy fella. Tell me about the, okay, so the suit's real dumb. I just want to get that out of the way. I feel like I went through some changes in the series.
Is it dumb? I mean,
it's
yes,
pretty dumb.
It's dumb, but is it dumb because it's old-fashioned? I mean, if it's not Superman's iconic suit, the Superman suit on Superman in this era, in the Christopher Reeves movies, is just the same suit with different colors.
It's the little skirt that's just does not hold up.
Skirt?
Yeah, look at the original. Let's see, where is it? I'll find a good picture of it. Actually, if you just do an image search for it, you'll see it immediately now. But it's got like a little skirt to it.
Oh, I think it's the shirt. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. The shirt goes through the belt and then kind of flares out. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes. And it's terrible. It's awful. I hate it in every way. You have a note in here about it being upside down scissors or something, and I don't.
Yeah,
see
apparently Stephen J. Cannell was talking to the costume designer and said, "Okay, we need some kind of logo or something on the front." And the costume designer is like, "Well, what do you want?" Cannell said, "Nah, I don't know. This is the way the story goes anyway." And Cannell's like, "I don't know. I hadn't thought about it." And the designer's like, grabbed some scissors, turned them upside down, and was like, "There's your logo."
Wow. Oh, you're right. Kind of is, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, sorta. The here, chat room, you guys can see this. That logo, I'm not sure, is the greatest pair of scissors.
I mean, it's definitely stylized. It's not just scissors, but it looks like you could have started with a pair of scissors and then, tweaked it a little to make that logo.
It looks like a carrot laying inside of a book that's about to be shut on the carrot to me.
And my scissors here on the table are not the kind of scissors. I bet he had those thick handled design scissors for cutting cloth.
Oh, the ones
That's kind of what it looks like.
The ones your mom would get mad at if you used them on things you weren't supposed to. Oh my gosh, that was in our house. That was the most forbidden thing ever. Don't use the material scissors for anything else, Scott. If you do, you're out of the family, kind of stuff.
Stop cutting your cartoons with the material scissors.
I mean,
that's feed you to the Kraken.
That's probably what I was doing, like Sunday Funnies or something. It's probably cutting those right out of there.
Also, the symbol is red on a white background, and the Hong Kong television station TVB termed the Cantonese dubbed version of the show to mean flying red center hero.
Whoa. Nailed it.
Because they felt like the logo looked like the red center tile in Mahjong tiles.
Oh. But wouldn't that be like us saying, if it looked like a chess character, it'd be like us saying the left rook logo. Like that would still sound dumb.
Exactly.
You would never call it that, though. You'd say...
Or the flying Scrabble bee. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's more like the flying king.
Oh.
And because or the flying jack, and it looks like the jack of hearts.
Oh, okay. Now that I'm cool with.
I guess it's more like that.
I guess I don't understand Mahjong enough to make any comment in there. I'm a little out of my lane there, but... anyway, it's fine. I mean, for 1980, this is fine. And part of the joke or part of the conceit of the show is that it is embarrassing to wear, that it is tights, that it is.
Oh yeah, they lean
dorky.
into that, right?
Right.
In fact, the only parts of this episode that really felt dated to me, other than the period appropriate things like him, like him talking about the Cold War stuff, were when his son discovers him in the suit and isn't like thrilled.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm like, if this was today, he would have walked out to his son. Is like, hey, don't tell anybody. Well, what do you think? This is my super suit. And his son would be like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. You got a super suit. I mean, if the suit hadn't been so goofy.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like the embarrassment is less about the fact that the suit is so weird and just the fact that he has a suit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like having a super suit is just not done in 1981.
No, like trying to think where we were with superheroes in general.
There's no cosplaying.
No.
As a mainstream thing in 1981.
No, I don't think so. And in fact, I don't even think. I mean, like even mainstream comic characters like Superman, like Batman, that kind of stuff wasn't really
kids.
happening. Yeah, it was for
kids. They even
kids.
make that mention, like that kind of stuff is for kids.
Mm-hmm. It was like Super Friends is about as good as you got.
Yeah.
And that stuff was cheesy and terrible, and everybody knew it. So, anything that they were going to do here with superhero ideas were going to be told from the angle of this is embarrassing, this is goofy, this is weird, everyone's going to think you're crazy, and not, this isn't Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. This isn't 2019 where we're really open to the idea of multiple running series that are basically about people with powers and abilities and supernatural whatever. Like, we're so far from that. So instead they focus on what I like about the show, which is the practicality of it, or the impracticality of it. Like, this is regular life, and when you don't have a moment where you have to be a super guy, what are you doing? well, you're trying to help some high schoolers get their freaking GEDs or whatever, and then you find out about some horrible crime and you got to go try to solve it, but you're pretty bad at flying and you don't even know all the powers you might have. Like, there's something about that that's really endearing and enduring, and I hope they figure out a way to do something with it. It could be a fun Netflix type original Hulu thing that, is just a short run series. I mean, if they can do the Karate Kid thing.
How cool would it be if they got Mike Catt to come back, or I'm sorry, William Catt.
Yeah.
To come back and be an older Ralph Hinckley.
Yep.
He's a principal.
Mm-hmm.
And there's all kinds of ways you could engineer it. Maybe the aliens come back or whatever, but he's got the suit. The Greatest American Heroine stopped using it years ago. And he's got the suit back, and suddenly he's told that he needs to find a new champion to wear it.
Yeah.
And then he becomes the Bill Maxwell in the situation.
Yeah. That's a great idea.
I love that.
It's Cobra Kai can do it, so can this. You know what I mean?
That's right.
That's a big slice of cheese that shouldn't work, and it does somehow. So I don't think anybody should feel bad about trying to push this through. I think it's a great idea.
Who doesn't like cheese?
No.
Well, if you're lactose intolerant.
And William Catt's still around and wants and seems like he's willing to do stuff.
Yeah.
He's not picky.
Maybe he doesn't want to go back to this role. I guess I could understand that. He's like, no, be Hinckley again. But
maybe.
But if he did, I think that'd be great.
Yeah. He's in by the way, he's in a movie from, let's see. Did you ever see House from 1985?
1985.
Yeah, it's got George Wendt in it, which is weird also, but it's a horror movie though. So it's George Wendt, William Catt, Richard Mall, bunch of people like that, and it's about this haunted house. Owner of a sinister house gets involved with the reanimated corpses and demons searching for an ancient Aztec skull with magic powers. It's great. And if I showed you the movie poster, you'd go, "Oh yeah, I saw that a billion times at Larry's Home Movie Video Rental or whatever that place is you had."
Sounds like exactly. I could picture the VHS box now. Yeah.
There's this disembodied zombie hand pushing the doorbell of a house, floating kind of in space, and you immediately are brought back to like the 80s. And chat rooms, a few people are popping in here. Wicked Kitten seen it, loves it. Yes, the creepy finger ringing the doorbell. That's exactly it. Anyway, he was in that. If he was willing to do that, he could do some other cool stuff. Come on, come back. Come back to your old role, William Catt. There's nothing stopping you. And
also, I think we're all okay to call him Hinckley again.
Oh, yeah, that's totally fine. Yeah, you want to talk about that for a second? That's interesting.
That was a big deal. Yeah. I was a huge fan of this show. And so I remember experiencing all of these things, including the fact that I did not remember that they call him Mr. H in the pilot.
Right.
But I do remember when they stopped calling him Hinckley.
Yeah.
And it was just Mr. H. And we were all talking about that at school. Like, did you notice they just won't call him? It's because of the assassination attempt on Ronald Reagan by John Hinckley Jr. They don't want to call him Hinckley. And that was true. Yeah. That wasn't just a crazy Greenville Elementary School rumor. That was actually for real. Because this premiered, what did we say, March 18th, and the assassination attempt on President Reagan happened on March 30th.
Mm-hmm.
So they hurriedly changed his name to Ralph Hanley for 2 episodes that aired within days of the incident. They did some overdubbing, and then just started calling him Ralph or Mr. H. Although eventually, by season 2, they had calmed down and said, okay, I think we can go back to calling him Mr. Hinckley. So in the season 2 premiere, they started using his surname as Hinckley, which is weird. It's like, why didn't they just call him Mr. H and be done with it?
Yeah.
And just never refer to Hinckley again until you're already comfortable to come back and changing his name to Hanley and then changing it back to Hinckley. It's like, well, once you've changed his name to Hanley, just go dub the pilot for syndication to be Hanley and call that a day. Like, why would you change back and forth? It's just so weird.
Just call him Hinckley. See, what my take would be, just call him Hinckley and don't get swayed by some psychopath who's big in the news because he took a shot at the president.
Well, I mean, yeah, but it is the 1980s, and I understand that ABC, I mean, TV was bigger now than it is then.
Yeah.
And also a bigger target.
Right.
that because it's like, well, now we're celebrating this person by naming a TV character after him.
Yeah, I guess I can
I'm
see
with
it.
you. I like just just stick with it and be like, no, different Hinckley. But
Yeah.
I remember at the time, like the idea that the greatest American hero could be called Hinckley. It felt like calling him Castro or Oswald or Stalin or Hitler or something.
Yeah, I guess so. I remember that was a huge deal, and it
It was
permeated
at the
everything.
time,
Yeah, it absolutely did. And today's modern equivalent or semi-modern equivalent is probably all the shows that had, like Sopranos, in their intro, every episode had a shot of the two towers in it. When those went down, they edited them out, and so then there was this big.
I know it's harder to imagine, but if a character had been called Osama,
Yeah.
and was the greatest American hero, I think a lot of people would have been tempted to change that name.
Yeah. Yeah.
And apologies to all the fine, upstanding Osamas out there that have to suffer because of that.
Right, or all the many Hinkleys who were, had to go about their lives.
And all the Hinkleys too.
All the 80s Hinkleys that had to struggle through that. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. I was just thinking, if this same thing happened today, if somebody took a shot at the president, would that affect television in the same way? And I don't think it would, because like you said, it's not the target it used to be. It's also a much larger target.
It depends. If there was a show called The U.S. Superhero, starring a man as Ralph Bin Laden,
Yeah.
I think they would have changed that name.
Yeah. But it would never have been that, though. So let's use this
That's
scenario.
the thing, right? Like yeah.
What if in the 90s somebody's name?
What if it was Joey McVeigh?
Okay, there you go. Timothy McVeigh's last name. Joey McVeigh is your main character in the U.S. Great American Hero,
or one of the people, like in Orlando or Vegas. If those people's name, I don't even want to say those people's names now, right?
I don't either. You're right.
So I get it.
Yeah, I think I'd get it. This has been good to talk about because I think I understand it more. And certainly at the time, the Hinckley-Reagan thing really, it's hard to overemphasize how permeable that was for all of our lives at that time across everything. Like, it's all you heard about. And the president didn't even die in it. Like, he was just injured. So it wasn't even like the ultimate tragedies. It wasn't like Kennedy or something. But It was so the topic of every single time you turned on TV ever, and it wasn't something, fictional. It was about that Hinckley deal. And then if you couldn't watch like what's her name? Because he obsessed about the actress.
Charles Manson.
No. The girl that Hinckley was all into. She's a famous actress, Jodie Foster. He's all into Jodie Foster.
Oh, you mean and just now I thought you meant Ralph Hinckley. No, you mean John Hinckley Jr.
John Hinckley Jr.
He was obsessed with Jodie Foster.
Obsessed with Jodie Foster. And so you couldn't watch a Jodie Foster role in the 80s and not think about Hinckley because it was all being talked about all the time. So it's such a weird little spot in my life that I haven't thought about very much, but it was so... everything was covered in Hinckley for like 3 years for me. Just all the time. That's all anyone talked about. If my parents were talking about stuff, Hinckley. It's just like nothing but Hinckley tried to shoot Reagan, and boy, oh boy, wasn't that awful, and so on and so forth. And I used to get confused with the guy who shot Lennon, John Lennon. I get those two guys mixed up all the time. So, and do I still have them mixed up? Have I got it mixed up now?
No. You haven't said the name of the guy who shot Lennon, but yeah, John Hinckley Jr. is the guy who shot Ronald.
Right, and he's the one. He had the Jodie Foster thing. Oh, Mark David Chapman. Okay, so yeah, I didn't screw that up in my head, but they were all connected to me. Like, it was maybe the first time in my young life that prominent people were being shot or assassinated. And
there was an assassination attempt on Gerald Ford.
Oh, right.
When I was young, but it didn't. I don't think he got shot.
Yeah.
I think they shot at him. So it was, again, another step down, right? President Reagan didn't get killed, thank goodness. President Ford didn't even get hit by the bullet, thank goodness.
Right.
But yeah, I think about it as, well, there was the era of the 60s when there were these high-profile assassinations of Robert Kennedy and Martin Luther King Jr., John F. Kennedy. Then it went away, and we had this aberration with Ronald Reagan, and it's like, well, or did we? Like, actually, there, because you mentioned there's John Lennon, and there was the attempt on Gerald Ford, and it's like, okay, I guess it didn't really end until the 80s. We thankfully haven't had assassination attempts since then.
Yeah, as far as I know, we haven't had any, right? I mean, I'm sure we've had foiled plans or something.
Yeah, before there might have been plans that are foiled before they ever got close to being carried out or something like that.
Yeah, it's just the Secret Service is better than ever or something, but that is kind of nice. That used to stress me out when I was a kid.
Oh, right. And Benjamin 006, we're talking about the U.S. We're certainly not.
Oh, yeah. We're purely U.S. And dude, the show's called Greatest American Hero, which also is kind of dumb. Like, I don't really know why it's called that. It could be called anything. These aliens just pick this dude, and why it's
it is a bit of its time for that, isn't it? Because the idea is like, well, there's the Ruskies and there's us. And if you want a hero, he's going to have to be American. That is kind of a background assumption to this entire plot line, because the aliens don't land in Canada. They don't go to Brazil. They don't end up, in India. They go to America because it is in America that they need to stop the problems. But that said, the plot is they need to stop a rogue American government agent from happening, right? The idea is to assassinate the U.S. president, right?
Yeah.
I mean, connection there. We've got Hinckley in a show that started with an attempted assassination of a president.
Yeah.
And the idea is then to take over the government and cause a more unstable world, because America is the power that can be used for good or ill. And these characters want to use it for ill. So you need the greatest American hero to stop America from being used for bad things.
Sure. And the idea of going with kind of just a teacher guy on the ground. This isn't anybody with any special qualifications for saving said world or for saving the government. And it somehow works. Like, that's the fun bit, right? Like, from the lowest among us is going to be the one that figures out how to take care of it. And that's a lot of fun.
Unrelated things in the chat says the Russian heroes were so good they had to add the qualifier. It's the greatest American hero. Just so you know.
Right.
It's not the greatest hero, because, well, all right.
You got to qualify it. Exactly. I understand that.
Actually, all the Russian heroes were all exactly. There was no greatest Soviet hero.
Oh, I would watch a show called The Greatest Soviet Hero. I would watch that. Actually, I think I'm already watching it.
Perfectly equal Soviet hero.
I think I'm watching it. I think it's on Chernobyl, and I think it's those firemen that showed up to put that freaking fire out. Those guys are
that's no joke there, right?
Yeah, they are like legit, like real heroes, not some school teacher who found a suit from aliens. Anyway, that's another thing that's just killing me, because I didn't, in 86, sorry for the offshoot here, but in 86, none of that was really in my purview. I just wasn't focused at all on international news and what was happening over there, and the meltdown of the reactor and all that stuff. I remember it being talked about, but I was, I was 86, I was 16, I was looking for gas to make sure I could get my car to the date's house so I could take to see a movie. Like, I just didn't care.
I mean, to my embarrassment, my reaction to Chernobyl at age 16 was, is it going to hit us?
Yeah.
Is it going to drift over the pole?
Yeah.
No? Oh, good. That'll show the Soviet Union that they're no good at things.
Well, I mean, that was the propaganda at the time.
Yep.
So
which is horrible.
It is horrible, but you can't blame a 16-year-old for. It's the other adults in the room that should feel bad. They're the ones that pushed it on us. But anyway, back to this thing. I want to just give Scott's opinion on Robert Culp for a moment.
Okay.
So this is a dude who we know from I Spy, the old Cosby Robert Culp thing. And I was not a fan of that, didn't know that show until later.
Oh, and I didn't realize how much that's playing into informing this character. That's
kind
a really
of is,
good point.
In a lot of ways it is. But I bring that up because it's really the only two big things I've ever heard of him being in. He's clearly been in lots more than that. But he to me is what holds this show together. He's funny, like genuinely, legitimately funny in this. And there were a couple of moments I laughed at this old ass pilot, which is otherwise not that funny. Like, there's not a lot of laugh out loud moments. It's a lot of cheesy dialogue, some kind of bad audio quality stuff when they were all talking in classrooms.
Remind me about the music soundtrack once you're done.
Okay, good. I will definitely do that. But Robert Culp, consistently in every scene that he's in, is funny to me, is compelling as the character he's trying to play, makes me want to see more of the show because of him. I think he's perfectly cast in this, and the show would be nowhere near as cool without him. So it's a small thing, and I think there are plenty of people who could argue otherwise, but I think there is no greatest American hero without the Robert Culp character to sort of be his grounding rod, his
foil.
grumpy reminder that things are more complicated than he thinks, and his foil, like you say, is even a better word. Like that guy is great, and them as a pair, there's really good chemistry there, and I think most of it is Robert Culp. So I just wanted to get out there and get after it because he's the man, and he's passed away some years ago, but that guy's great. All right.
What's funny to me is I remember the Ralph Hinckley character being kind of doofy and goofy and I don't know, because the shot you see is always him not being able to fly right. And I remember Bill Maxwell as being a straight arrow and really, really sharp and serious, and this episode I'm like, oh, Ralph Hinckley when he's not in the suit is not goofy or doofy or overplaying it. He's actually a really well played, even keeled character who's trying to do right. And Bill Maxwell is the one, if anything, who's a little overplayed because he's kind of a caricature of the of the Cold War spy mentality, and that doesn't diminish my agreement with anything you just said. But I was surprised. I'm like, oh, I remember Bill Maxwell being way more serious than this. And you're right. He's got all the best comic lines.
He does. He's great, and he's great in lots of things. One of the most the last things I heard before he passed away was he was the voice of Dr. Wallace Breen in the video game Half-Life 2.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so he was working. Well, he worked all the way up till 2010, right before he died. But
he was TV's Robert Redford in looks. I feel like.
Oh yeah, he's great. Well, and so was Robert Redford in some ways.
I guess Robert Redford could also be TV. But Robert Redford was only doing movies back then.
Right, no,
he
that's a
wasn't
good
going to
point.
show up on Greatest American.
Yeah,
Hero.
there was a huge dividing line between TV people and movie people back then. It's not so much that way now, but he's really great, and I just don't think he gets enough credit. I mean, maybe he does in some circles, maybe some generational.
In the Culp household, mostly.
Yeah, the Culps love him. The Culp family are super into him.
Culp following.
Oh, you went there. That's fantastic. All right, tell me about the soundtrack.
All right, so
yeah.
I'm curious where you watched this.
I watched it on headphones on an iPad Pro in a bed on Amazon Stream.
I'm sorry, I should have been more specific in my question, Jeannie. I meant what service did you use?
Oh, I used Amazon Prime Video is what I used.
Okay, I did too. Did you notice that 3 times we got music that seemed to come from the 2000s?
Yes. What was that about?
Okay, that is about really bad choices to replace music you don't have the license to. This happens a lot to movies or TV shows from the 70s, 80s, and 90s where they used actual hit music, but didn't secure the rights for anything but broadcast. And so when they make DVDs sometimes, and certainly when they make streaming because they don't have streaming rights, they would have to go and relicense all the music. The worst example of this, Roger Chang always rails against the Northern Exposure DVDs.
Oh, right.
Have none of the original music on it.
Yep.
Which is essential to the story in a lot of cases. So here they replaced the original music that they didn't want to get licensed with library music that is not from the 80s. It doesn't sound like it's from the 80s. It's so inappropriate. And it was so disappointing. So I went and I found someone who had uploaded an unmodified version of Greatest American Hero to YouTube. And it's Help Me Rhonda, which ties right into Love Me Rhonda, the character. It's Space Oddity, David Bowie, which, of course, perfect. And Elton John's Rocket Man. Oh. Those are the 3 songs you should have heard instead of and I don't want to insult the bands, but the unfortunate choices for fit that were put in their place.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought this up because I didn't know what was going on because they were so out of place, and not just bad music or inappropriate lyrics or whatever to the scenes or whatever. I don't mean that. They just felt out of time. And I thought, weird. This is
it's one thing to replace it with something that's, just unidentifiable, and you're like, oh, okay. But they did like that song that they replaced Help Me Rhonda with is it's not 80s, it's not even 60s, which Help Me Rhonda is. It's like from 27, it's like some 2017 band. It just didn't make any sense.
Yeah, some indie band you'd only hear on some alternative station. And at first I thought, wow, they're really ahead of themselves here with this.
They're ahead of the game.
This is trippy, like some kind of cool road music that's like, oh, and then I thought, this can't be right. Something's wrong. And then there was a point where one of the songs faded so quickly that I knew something was wrong.
Yeah.
What you're saying is confirming what I was feeling, which was, whoa, you cut that off way too soon. Like there was something done later. Like it was really funky. But I'm kind of torn now because the songs that you mentioned before are obviously huge hits, and those are gigantic songs, and obviously you're not going to have the rights for those later on.
I mean, you could get them, but maybe they're expensive. It's usually less about the expense as about the expense of having someone go through and get rights. Getting rights for stuff is pain. It takes time and it's complicated.
Chat room says the WKRP in Cincinnati was hit by this real hard. Because when they'd go to music, there was always, something popular from the day. And if you go look at it now, it's all, nondescript, almost open source sounding music. But someone says, Swamp Rat 1965 says best way to get WKRP is to buy the Shout Factory DVD set. Says most of the music in there is restored. So here's the thing about Roger Chang. He complains about a lot of stuff, and I really love it. I love listening to him complain about things. He's totally right about Northern Exposure. It ruins the show to do what they did to that show without having the rights to the music. So if somebody can get a copy of Northern Exposure with all the music intact, that's the Northern Exposure
I tell you where you can find it.
Is it a piratey thing I can do?
Yeah, by stealing it.
Oh, well, that's no good.
That's the sad fact.
Right. Wouldn't I I would rather give money to the people who deserve it and have it be legit. But nobody's letting anyone do that. So, I don't know. I don't know what you do. I feel like this is a great time for Tom to talk about how copyright law is broken.
Yeah, I mean, this is one where it's not so much the copyright law is broken, although if we had a shorter copyright, you'd have fewer of these issues. Songs would finally go into public domain, and then it wouldn't be a big deal. So that would ease this problem. But even for even for things where it wouldn't ease that problem, I feel like there just needs to be a better system for licensing that is cost effective, which would actually bring more money to the artists, theoretically, and make it easy. Because like I said, sometimes it's cost. Sometimes it's like, well, if you want to use this huge hit song, you're going to pay through the nose. And it's like, and we're holding out because that way you don't hear it a lot of places. And so when some big blockbuster movie wants to use it, they have to pay for it. I get that. But a lot of it is they just don't want to. They just don't want to go through the time because it's so time consuming. And I feel like there ought to be a technological solution for that.
Yeah,
where
I
just
agree.
make it easy to license something. As long as you can pay the fee, whatever the fee is, it shouldn't be hard to get licenses for stuff like that.
Yeah, and I also feel like 1980. Well, obviously in 1980 they didn't realize. Well, nobody realized what the potential of home versions of stuff was going to be. Right? Nobody knew.
Well, that's
VHS
the thing, right?
DVD,
When you're making the contract in 1981,
right,
you're barely thinking about VHS. Certainly not for television shows at that point.
Yeah.
So you just do the rights for broadcast and syndication, right? Because you want to syndicate it. You want to make some money off that, but you're not worried about anything else. And then these new formats come up, and then it, causes problems.
It's also now one of those shows that we've watched where I feel like I kind of want to keep going. So maybe I will, and maybe I'll report back on how this series goes. I think they tightened up the formula, is my memory, and kind of got more right to the fun of a villain of the week kind of arrangement, and didn't spend a whole lot of time setting things up the way that this long episode did, or this two-parter as it's sometimes seen. And
yeah, they definitely do get tighter. The first season is also interesting because they're more drama oriented. The second season, the network really started to pressure them to do Monster of the Week, kind of, let's save the day. But Cannell resisted that. He really wanted to do I don't want Hinckley to save the day. I want him to struggle with the burden of this power, and they do more of that in season 1.
You know what's really weird to think about is Robert Culp was just about almost exactly you and I's age when he was in this, when this started.
He's 50?
Yep.
Damn.
Put that in your pipe and smoke it, which is probably why he looked a lot older.
I can't smoke a pipe anymore. I'm too old. It's not good for me.
Everybody was smoking something, and they all looked older as a result. But I was watching this going, oh, look at old man Culp still keeping up. He's like probably 68 here, doing great. And then I looked him up and went, oh, my gosh, he's my age. Good Lord. Anyway. Well, that's
He had way more gray hair than either you or I did.
Oh,
Heads.
yeah, not even. Yeah, we're not even in the same
Maybe
ballpark.
in the beard, but he didn't have a beard, so we can't.
When
tell.
he's in his 30s, he looks like you.
Yeah, that's true. He really does. I Spy him looks exactly the same.
It's really weird. Anyway, this show is called The Greatest American Hero, and it's available now streaming in all of its glory, minus some of the music licensing over there at Amazon Prime Video. So if you want to watch it, you certainly
It's also
can.
on Hulu,
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
I think.
I did a search for
I
it.
was directed to Hulu one time, and I was like, no, I won't.
I did a search on Just Watch, but that's not always accurate. So it's
Oh,
possible.
maybe I'm confusing it with The Office UK. The Office UK is the one I'm watching that's on 2 services. Never mind. It's not
Oh,
Greatest
yeah, that's weird how that happens sometimes. The great atrocity at the moment is that previous Current Geek episode coverage of a great show, Faulty Towers, is no longer streaming anywhere except that stupid, no, I shouldn't say stupid, but that British
BritBox?
streaming service, BritBox, is the only place I can get it right now. That's annoying. It was on Netflix for, it felt like a decade. It hasn't been that long, but it felt like it. And it's not there anymore. So, damn it. What are you trying to do to me? I don't want to sign up for another thing. You got to quit moving those things around. But anyway.
They're trying to make you sign up for another thing.
I guess they are.
And until these other things get the idea that there are only a certain amount of things that will be supported by the marketplace, we're going to have that problem. But a bunch of them will go out of business. In 5 years, it'll all shake out of that.
So next week or next time we do this, I know we haven't discussed this, but unless you have a name or an episode of something in total stone here, I've been getting, for some reason, an uptick in the last couple of weeks of people privately asking us to do Star Trek Voyager and to do the pilot of that. I don't know why Voyager specifically, out of all the Treks. I don't know, but it's multiple times.
Did we not ever do that?
We've
I felt
never
like
done
we did
it.
all the Star Treks, but maybe we didn't.
We've never done Voyager. We've done, I think we did, we haven't even done TNG, I don't think. Can't remember. Now my brain.
I know we did the original series. That one.
Yes, for sure we did that.
All right, Star Trek Voyager it is.
So I guess we'll do Voyager. It's a weird thing, but
This
y'all
will be
are asking
like
for
my
it.
15th time watching the pilot of Star Trek Voyager.
I've forgotten so much of it. I remember Picard's in it for a minute, right? When he's talking to Janeway about leaving on their trip or something. There's something to do with that in the beginning. Really? I swear there's something.
I know they dock at Deep Space Nine. I thought it was Cisco that she talks to.
Maybe. There's some captain she talks to on a video screen. Or what I'm thinking of is First Contact, the movie where Picard talks to now Admiral Janeway, who's home and safe.
Yeah.
Or something like that. I forget. But Voyager it is.
Yeah, some total side note. Did you see the teaser for Picard?
Oh, yeah, it looks great.
It looks so good. I
mean,
know it's not much in the teaser, but that's like everything I saw I liked.
I mean, I have an idea I want to do with that trailer just to kind of fool people's expectations, because in a lot of ways that thing just looks like a fancy wine trailer at the beginning. But it's got me more excited than I've been for a Trek thing in a long time, including Discovery. I'm more excited about this. So yeah, dude, bring it on. Let's go. Let's find out why Admiral Picard left Starfleet in the first place. Maybe there was a fifth light. He just couldn't deny it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Anyway. Or maybe it was he just became a whiner.
I see what you did there. There are 4 wines. All right. That'll be next month.
Grapes.
Tonight or next week will be a discussion episode, so come on back for that. And a reminder that right after this, you'll get to hear rather Legal Geek talk about the new Supreme Court decision allowing a class action lawsuit to continue against Apple, of all people, or companies, for potential antitrust violations in monopolizing the App Store marketplace.
That's a big one. You want to listen to this?
This is a big one. Probably going to hear about it in lots of other places, including Tom's show. Speaking of Tom and other things he does, do you want to mention anything before we go today?
Yes, I do. I was on 2 great shows this week, and they're different but both great. One was Comedy Film Nerds at comedyfilmnerds.com. I was on there talking about the movie Rocket Man, the new John Wick movie, with Chris and Graham. So if you like to hear people joking around about movies, especially somebody like Chris who knows a ton about movies, so much fun talking with those folks at comedyfilmnerds.com. And then also just this morning, I was on the Phileas Club, Patrick Beja's show, which I feel is essential listening to understand the world around you these days. But it was me, Patrick Beja, and a pro-Brexit Brit named Gareth. And we talked about Brexit. We talked about the abortion law in Alabama. We talked about the banning of the sale of nicotine products in Beverly Hills, California. It's all there, and it's a polite and informative and insightful conversation. So go check that out at FrenchSpin.com. That's the Phileas Club.
It's a really good show. I've been on it a few times. My sister's on there all the time. Apparently, she is a popular guest because she yes, as a fan of the show, I love it when Wendy comes. Yeah,
it's great.
She thinks she's not good on it, but I think she brings a nice voice to it.
Tell her I think she's great too.
I will tell her that Tom has reinforced my opinion that you are great on that show. So do that. There's lots of other stuff going on around the Frog Pants Network. So if you are looking for more great content similar to what Tom has described, you can find it over at frogpants.com. And I think that's going to do it for us. Oh, don't forget, support us on Patreon. We have a Patreon. That's right, we do. Patreon.com/CurrentGeek. And you can throw your support over there. We got great rewards, cool stuff ships out in the mail to people and everything. It's fantastic. Patreon.com/CurrentGeek. CurrentGeek.com for everything else. Until next week, for me, for Tom, we'll see you then. Yeah.
Good audible call.